So I just made a couple slides, and since I made the slide, I got to put my favorite stamp on it. So I thought that was cool anyway. But that's just for tonight. And these are the people that I've invited tonight, and most probably need no introduction. I know you guys, probably know most of each other, and this is elite stamp group here. I mean, well beyond just your average local club guys. But we'll get a chance to introduce everybody here, and if you'd like to start doing that now, that would actually be fine. We can do that. I'll start with myself. My name is Steve Kennedy. I'm with the Pennsylvania Postal History Society, and basically, I just sent out an invite for you guys to see if there was interest in possibly doing some collaboration amongst our different groups and seeing how that might be able to benefit us. I've seen some things, more of this post-COVID time, where people we should have more of an opportunity maybe to share resources like Zoom meetings and even technical things. How are you setting up your newsletters? What technology do you use? What different things? It's great if we don't all have to put out, the money for Zoom every month or whatever it might be, but we can get to that. So that's kind of what I was thinking. So if maybe we can go around, if you pick a person after you, I would like to pick Bill Schultz. If you want to say a few words and see what you're thinking. Bill and I kind of got this idea together. So.
Well, thank you, Steve. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Good. Steve and I were talking a month or so ago, and one of the things we were talking about is with the Pennsylvania Postal History Society, which I'm a life member of. I said to Steve, we may have an opportunity to talk to other postal history societies and possibly, just possibly, by merging or affiliating or whatever words you want to use, it might help us all to survive as we go down the road. The Pennsylvania Postal History Society, I've seen the boom and I've seen the shrinkage. I remember in 1980, give or take, that 40 years ago, we had probably over 300 dues paying members. And just recently, we dropped below 100. That's a bad trend in anybody's book. So what can we do to stem that tide? And Steve and I have been bouncing forth a few ideas with other board members. I'm not a board member, I'm the vice president. So I'm okay with saying, let's talk to other groups, and maybe there's a way to, I'm thinking synergy, I'm thinking piggybacking, I'm thinking you help us, we help you, you scratch our back, we scratch your back. There's got to be the way. We're all postal historians. That's sort of my premise. So how can we help each other be better postal historians for our respective states' organizations? And I'm talking more about survival. I mean, let's not mince any words. I remember when the APS had 57,000 members. They dropped below 27,000 in a short number of years. So we can't pretend those numbers aren't real. So I said to Steve, let's have a meeting and talk about these things, and maybe there's some hope for the future collectively as compared to individually. So that's my thoughts.
So you get to pick the next person, Bob.
I'll go Wayne Farley, my buddy.
There you go.
Hey, Bill, how you doing?
Doing fine.
Good. Enjoyed your talk a couple weeks ago on the toll gates.
Hey, thanks.
Very, very, very interesting.
Good, thanks.
There is no official West Virginia Postal History Group. I'm a member of the Virginia Society, and the Virginia Society includes the West Virginia collectors. So we're allowed to put together publications and articles for the journal. I'm actually the journal editor for the Virginia Postal History Society. Jean Lightfoot, there at the bottom of the bottom face there, you see, is the president. And we're planning to have one this Saturday a board meeting of the trustees and the officers at Gene's house. So whatever's discussed tonight will probably be brought up on Saturday. But we're open to anything, Gene and I. And as far as what you're trying to do to organize postal history collectors from the Mid-Atlantic region. So I don't have anything further. I guess I'll just go ahead and let Gene talk some more.
Hi guys, I'm Gene Lightfoot, president of the Virginia Postal History Society. I sort of mirror the same things that Wayne has spoken about. We did absorb the West Virginia Postal History Society, due mainly to what Bill was talking about, just the decline that we've seen in membership. We're also struggling with we've seen a decline of under 100 members also, so we're down pretty low. One of the things that we've been trying to do without any luck at all is trying to get younger people into the hobby, and it just seems impossible to do that. I know I have 2 young kids, and I've tried to get them interested, but it just doesn't take for some reason. They got so many other things to do now. But it is, people who love history. There is a tie in there with the postal history aspect of it. So I don't know what the answer is. So I was real excited when I saw that Steve had pulled this together. So I'm here to, I'm sure with Wayne, to help in any way that we can, and just to see what ideas we can come up with. And with that, I'll go to Dave Plunkett.
Well, I'm kind of at a disadvantage here. I'm not an officer or board member of the Ohio Postal History Society. I just put the newsletter together, or the journal together. We've been kind of dormant for the last 3 years, nothing going on. And I recently was able to get the journal back up and running. But our organization hasn't had a formal meeting in a couple of years. We've been riding along with the same officers. So I guess I'm just here to pass on information and see what develops.
All right, who's next, Dave? Oh. How about you, Charlie? Why don't you go?
You don't want me to go, do you?
Dave, of course.
Yeah, so, I mean, I know a number of you. You might know me as well, and I think I'm here actually representing the Empire State Postal History Society, even though I'm currently the president of the Philatelic Society of Lancaster County, having moved to Pennsylvania from New York, where I lived my whole life, about 7 years ago, and, came here and sort of set up shop and have continued with my postal history interests across the board. And then when you don't show up and you leave New York, then they make you the head of New York. So go figure. Nobody leave your state, because then they'll find you and they'll track you down and they'll vote you in. And, but I've always been interested in all sorts of postal history and history in general and all that sort of stuff. And so for the New York State Postal History, or Empire State Postal History Society, we've kind of held our own for a bit, and there was a bit of a dip. And then a few years ago, I had a little bit more bandwidth to get involved, even from a distance, and created a new website. Really, there wasn't one, and then sort of elevated and promoted and did marketing and communicated and tried to elevate the bulletin and the Excelsior publications, created a Facebook page and a little bit of social. And, I'll go pre-pandemic, then I'll go during the pandemic. And so just tried to really engage the groups that we've had and try to promote and do a little more marketing and engage in the other pieces of it, not just the stamps or the covers, but I think what we're all talking about and why we do it is the history aspect of it, and the letters and the contents of it, and the routes that they took, and, the ships and the rail and all of that. So that whole piece. And we've we've been growing the past couple of years since we've done those efforts, adding a couple of new members on a year. and we're 100 and change in New York. I can definitely speak to that here in Pennsylvania. When I got here in Lancaster, we were about 65, 70 members. I have 125 members now. I think we crossed that last night with Steve Rod joining or Dave Plunkett coming on board. So we've seen a doubling in the past 4 or 5 years, which is very odd in this space to do that, I know. But I think we maybe have landed upon a couple of things. And I'll go back to when Bill and I spoke a couple of years ago in Chester when we thought about coming together to start the gathering, right? Just to share the love of the hobby and what we do, and kind of how do we think about legacy and the next generation, and what we could do today to engage not just youth, but even those other individuals at different stages of their life that just might be interested and have a little bit of time and want to get back involved in collecting of all different ways, whether they did it as a younger person or they didn't. And now they're finding that they can find a little bit of time and find some synergy with that. The camaraderie, I think, is a big piece in how we engage and how as a group we could probably come together. We started sharing newsletters and sharing our journals. I think having a presence and even en masse as a group here in the Mid-Atlantic would help to just promote all that we do. I think the pandemic has turned us on to this whole medium. We're talking here tonight. And when eventually this abates, I don't know that we're going to completely get away from this, because I think this has engaged a national and a global group of people that you can, at anywhere, anytime, if you have an interesting talk or a presentation or a lecture and you want to learn, you can just dial on in and you can share all of that. And this, postal history is history, as we all see. And as we all say, and as our friend Timmy O'Connor always reminds us. And I think that's what we all have a love for. So I think there's a great opportunity for us to come together and synergize and just start doing it, and start doing a little more outreach and letting folks know that we're here, which is really important as well. If they don't know you're there, they may not be attracted. And if we get them in and we give them a few different options with all of the things that we have to offer, I think we get some stickiness here, and we can probably then grow that. And so again, I appreciate everything you've done, for all of you have done. And maybe I'm the new guy to the table, but I just want to keep doing that and driving that and see how we could do it en masse together. It's better to do it as a community to try to push the agenda forward. A lot of touch points at this. So I'll stop there. I know we have others to talk about. I think David's probably next after me. But then I'm looking forward to the open discussion here, Steve. But I am on the board. I think I was elected, maybe not. Bill, thanks for taking the VP, because, I can't wear all these hats, but I think I'm also on the board at the PA Postal History Society, in addition to the myriad of other things that somehow you might know me from the Philatelic Classic Society, if you are involved with that group, because I probably won most of those officer hats over the year. And I'm still the editorial proofreader for the Chronicle, and I work closely with Michael Lawrence. And of course, I'm the editor for our Chairman's Chatter, which keeps me busy every quarter, as many of you know, pushing that Chairman's Chatter out for our folks. And again, I think there we've seen a little bit more oomph as well, and trying to move the needle and expand our circle. So again, I'll stop there and I'll pass it off to David. So thanks for the opportunity to talk.
Thanks. Bob, would you mind going first? Because I asked David to join us tonight, because he's actually the president of the Northeastern Federation. And he offered to give us some input and advice about how they do what they do. And maybe that would be kind of a good thing to do last, if you don't mind.
My bad, Bob. I should have kicked it your way. I should have known across the river. My bad.
Same thing. Sorry.
I'm very pleased to have been invited to participate in this discussion, and I thank Steve very much for putting this group together. I've had a couple of discussions with Steve early on, and it's exciting to see someone who was prepared to pick up the torch and see what we can do as a group. I think we all face similar challenges. Just by way of background about myself, I'm president of the New Jersey Postal History Society, chairman of the NOJEC show, and apart from that, chairman of the Philatelic Foundation, and on the board of governors of the Collectors Club, and belong to a number of societies as well. So I'm deeply immersed in the hobby, so to speak. I think we all face the same kind of challenges. When I first got involved with the New Jersey Postal History Society in the early 1990s, I think we had about 125 members then. We dropped down to maybe a low of about 90 in the pre-internet timeframe, and we're up to about 100. I think that's largely due to two factors. One, we have a very good website that includes journals going back to the beginning of the society in 1972. They can be viewed all online except for the last, I think, 5 years, and a lot of content as well. And that, I think, generally brings in about 5 new members a year. We also participate at the NOJEC show. We have a society booth there. Usually sign up a couple of people there at the show as well. And the journal, I'm very proud of the journal. We do 4 a year, about 160 pages. The journal has been in competition. It's won some large golds at stamp shows, and the last stamp show it was in at Omaha, it won a reserve gold. So we're very proud of our journal. And I think, as many of the speakers have said, the interesting thing about I think most of the journals that we share in common is that we do get involved in history and genealogy. We talk about the writers and the recipients and the towns and so forth that add, something to the philatelic content as well, which makes it interesting to a lot of folks. About 25% of the membership gets the journal by way of the internet. The rest get it mailed. We went to color about a year ago, which is a much more expensive cost to production, but it looks great in color. The people who were getting it before by way of internet were getting it in color wherever we had color, but it makes a really nice appearance in color, certainly. So I think it's certainly a very worthwhile endeavor to see what kind of synergies are out there that we can work together and promote the hobby. I think I said to Steve when we first chatted, probably close to 20 years ago, at NOJEX, we started a postal history competition where we had various societies. The Empire was involved very much. Alvin Parsons then taking the lead. Norman Shackett on behalf of the Pennsylvania group. Massachusetts group came in a couple of years, and it was a lot of fun. We had a competition among the societies for a series of different awards for state postal history, and that was a lot of fun. So it's certainly an opportunity that we all should take a look at, take it very seriously, and see what we can do together.
So David, if you could maybe, so some of the questions that I had, and I have a little list here of stuff, is trying to get started with something like this. I'm not sure how long you've been involved, but trying to think, should we get maybe postal history societies together first and start with 9 or 10 members, or do we jump right in and do like you guys and stamp clubs, right? In that mid-Atlantic area, I did a little research and it's well over 100 stamp clubs. I don't really know if we should take that on to start with, So if you could, and also most of the Northeastern and Southeastern Federation are definitely affiliated with shows. I don't know if that's something we need to do or should do or could possibly do down the road when they have them again. That's the kind of things, if you would take just a moment after introducing yourself, and that would be invaluable to us. Appreciate it.
Sure. Well, thank you for the invitation to join you. First of all, the answer to your question is yes. Okay. You should jump in, and do this. And you shouldn't start small, because things don't happen incrementally. They happen as a revolutionary sort of thing. People don't take a first step and then come back and take another bite. Things either happen or they don't happen. I'm David Ball. I know many of you. Bill, it's nice to see you. Charles, nice to see you. Robert, I for the last couple of years, I've been president of the Northeastern Federation of Stamp Clubs, and it's maybe 35 or 40 stamp clubs in the Northeast, of which maybe half of them are active and half are kind of limping along. I'm also the president of the American Airmail Society and the co-chair of the Boxborough show, philatelic show here in the Boston area. So I think the idea of you bringing together mid-Atlantic philatelic organizations is a great idea. And I don't think it's a hard thing to do. What we do in the Northeast Federation is we have a website and a webmaster. Larry Fillion does it for us. And he will make a page for each stamp club. And the stamp club just needs to give us, who are your officers? How do we contact you? When do you meet? Where do you meet? And we throw that up on a website. And, that is such an easy thing to do. And yet it has real value because somebody who collects stamps and they know how to get to eBay, but they don't know where there are stamp clubs. If they Google something and they run across the New England Federation of Stamp Clubs and they come on our website, they can see where that club is and they can contact somebody. And that's worth a great deal. And it's an easy thing to do. So instead of saying, well, let's see, I'm going to take this little subsection and I'm just going to focus on postal history, I would go big. I would identify all of the stamp clubs that are in your catchment area. And I would send them a letter and say, you can join the Mid-Atlantic Federation. You can be a member of the Mid-Atlantic Federation for free. There's no cost. All you have to do is send us the information on your stamp club, and we will put up a page on our website, and we will host the information how to get to your stamp club. And when we have things that are happening in the Mid-Atlantic region, so for example, if we have a stamp show and you want us to pump out information about your stamp show, we'll do that. And we do that in the Northeast. It's not an expensive thing to do. It's not a hard thing to do. And yet it connects people. It holds people together. And I think you should jump on it.
Well, that sounds neat. See, one of the things I think of is some clubs have their own websites, some don't. I mean, I could see like yours is a resource, and just like Bob was talking about New Jersey, I go to the New Jersey site all the time. There's great stuff on there, and I like to see that in some of the other websites that are out there. But some smaller clubs especially may not have the time, money, expertise to do that, So it's not that I'm trying to take away from anybody, I would just want to add to their experience, and having one place that you can go to and get a list of all the shows in whatever 8 or 9 states, or the Zoom presentations that different clubs or societies are willing to offer to members outside their own, that's pretty neat to go, like if you had a calendar up there. I do WordPress, right? So I do our website. And I found WordPress that there is a plugin that you can use on the calendar, and it talks about each of the different presentations. And I could put all those up there. People could go in one place, and it's like, okay, well, I have a free night, Tuesday night. Where should I go? Who should I dial into? What can I learn tonight? Because it's been really great to do that. And the other thing too is that the newsletters and journals and things. Journals are very proprietary, and I understand that, especially postal history societies, but you want to share some of it, right? Like the freemium model, like you share the free part, and then you have the really good stuff for your members, and you want people to join for that nominal fee or whatever it is. I mean, to me, it's so worth it, but we could do those little teasers on a Mid-Atlantic site and say, hey, come see this place. We have more of this, and even better and deeper and, greater detail.
Well, drug dealers always give you a free taste.
Sure,
So, so you could put up a page from, each one of the journals and say, if you like this stuff, you should belong to this society.
Right. So anyway, so let me share my screen real quick. And I just had a few things that maybe we could take a look at to discuss. We've already touched on some of them, the postal history societies versus stamp clubs. I don't want to get too deep into it because this is more of a meet and greet than it is making decisions or, that type of thing. It's just taking things back to people and figuring things out. But how would you do that? Would you have some kind of board, whatever it might be? And I'm just throwing things out here now, and then you guys can all jump in at the end of this. possibly aligning with a show like the Northeastern and Southeastern, that's a possibility. The resources we talked about. And like I said, especially the technology and communications during this COVID type stuff. And then we got our input from David. So those are things I just kind of wanted to throw out there. If anybody has anything else that they want to chime in on specifically, you think is a good idea or a bad idea, or what next steps might be to do something. We're coming to the end of the year. It's kind of natural, right? If we start something the beginning of January, I don't know, in the first of the year, and I don't know if we can pull it together in that time. I mean, there's websites available. Like I saw the domain names like MA for Mid-Atlantic Fed, MA Fed is available, .org. There's stuff out there that we can do and drive people to. And hopefully, one of the good things too with internet stuff is we put, some of each of the club stuff there, but the club can also drive traffic back to us. So it works for everybody, that type of thing. So I'd just like to open it up for any specific stuff. I know you guys talked about yourselves and what you're interested in, a little bit about things, but how about specifically with something that we might be able to start with here? Any pros and cons or anything, that we should be aware of? And
well, let me throw out two ideas. One is, well, first of all, in terms of the scope, I said I think you should consider stamp clubs as opposed to postal history societies. But the two individuals that I think that you should identify, one is a webmaster. Have somebody create, a website for your organization, and the other one is to get someone who's comfortable with Zoom, so that you can have kind of your Zoom guru guy. Because I have to think, at least for the next 6 months, and probably going forward, Zoom presentations are going to be a big part of what's going on. And if you've got somebody who's very comfortable with that technology and can help a presenter, so you get a presenter lined up, you've got a calendar, and you say, well, you're going to do it this day. I'm going to send my Zoom guy an email, and he'll get in touch with you, or you contact him. I think that would serve you well if you identified two people. One is a webmaster, and one is a Zoom guru.
Right. I would nominate Charlie, but then he would probably nominate me to get me back. No, but
I'll take it. I got it. I'm already doing mostly for, the Empire State. I'm doing the Philatelic Lancaster, and I even still do the Classic Society. So
one thing that's
not a problem.
Really well, Paul Peterson from Lancaster. So he has a schedule now for the next couple months, I guess, Charlie, at least, right? Next quarter.
We started Zooms as soon as we got locked down. I was the last person, I think, in February to give a lecture, an hour and a half lecture or something in person to 60 people at our society in PA. And we went to Zoom probably the first or second week in March. We have been doing 2 a month every other week since March, full 30 to 50 to 70 folks on it, bi-monthly. We just did one on Wednesday, 400th anniversary, Pilgrim's Landing. And we're booked out mostly into 2021, and we're starting to plan for 2022.
That's
so
wonderful.
we know it. Yeah, so we know at some point we're going to get back to face-to-face, but we're going to always supplement and add where we can, because I have folks probably in every state that at some point are dialing into these things from across the country. And if it's a topic you like and we push it out there and we share our databases, we do that. And so I think we've got, and every once in a while, Scott English will pop in, and last night Steve popped in, and then Bill Schultz will pop in. I mean, you just don't know who's going to show, and we put it out there. And I think we've had some pretty good traction here over the past months doing that, which has been great, with talks of all kinds. Everybody's welcome. And it can be 30 minutes, it can be an hour, it can be this level, that level, that doesn't matter. Broad topics, specific topics. We always follow that with an open session. We always do show and tell. Folks love to, if you did that first teaser, it was me and Paul showing.
Yep.
And then at some point somebody said, hey, I could show something. And then they stuck it up to the camera. And then I said, listen, just take a photograph on your picture. I'll show it for you on Zoom. I don't care how you do. So now we've got folks creating a couple of slides of PowerPoints. They're opening up JPEGs. They figured out how to use the technology. So I think we got over that hump. And I think this is going to be a balance between face-to-face when we can, shows when we can, and then using the technology when we can. But we push a lot of information out through our website. We push a lot of information out through social, and Facebook is just where folks are. I get probably a request a week, either through the Empire State or even through the Philatelic Society, of somebody doing a genealogy search because their great-great-grandfather's son was a clerk at a post office and they want more information. So they actually find us because we come up first on the Google search and they reach out to us. And you know, our postal historians and historians would love to do that little research project. And we're now doing that for people and they're happy. And then we're writing up little articles and we're doing a 2 or 3 pager in there. They get a copy, they tell their friends, they then come back. Oh, by the way, they might want to join because they just want to hear a good story. And we're telling stories, I think, as we're doing this stuff on our Zooms. And you know, and it's all different stories. And we've invited folks from around the country and they're presenting. So you can do this from anywhere. And I think we've had great traction.
And that's,
I know we could do that. We talked about also the website. I'll just add, because we're talking about a few things as I look here, you know, hosting other websites. You know, I started that here in Lancaster when I moved. There's a postcard club in Lancaster. There is the Capital Region Club in Harrisburg. There is the Coin Club as well. There is the Reading Stamp Club up the road from us. They didn't have the ability to do a site. All I had to do was on our site, host it and create a web page for them, which is what I did. I have all of their journals there. It's their online archive forever. And I scanned most of them, or they helped. I created the PDFs. You format them, you upload them. So I've got 5 society, and the gathering is up there, as Bill knows, because we created a web page for that. So I've got 5 that we're hosting because we can. If they want to give a little donation, maybe they give every year $50, $100, fine, just to cover some feet, fine. But you know, it's just you do it. And now we're promoting all of these, and you've got an online presence, an online archive, like Bob said. He's got his journals there. It's something I did 25 years ago for the Classic Society. And at that point, we had stuff behind, you know, the members domain. A lot of that now we just put out there and we give a teaser, you said, right? You can get the Chronicle past 5 years, and then you join, you get the last 80. I mean, so there's ways to do this, I think that, you know, and we did the same on the Empire State. You know, send me the back issues. I'll scan them. I'll put them up there. You know, nobody knew there was a Long Island Postal. I mean, they knew, but there was no access to the journals. Now they're all online. So there's a way to, I think, do this. And if we all do that, and we all cross-pollinate and share, and we all are doing our different Zoom events or face-to-face, and we also post our presentations after they're done. And I also post images of the events. And I show that we're relative and active. That really goes a long way. And it doesn't take a lot of energy and effort. It's a couple hours here or there and you just do it. So I think I'm saying what everybody's thinking and what we're doing. And if we can help those that don't have the ability, we'll elevate them and then we'll elevate us all. And we will broaden the net, which is what I think we've done at Empire and even here in PA, to cast a broader net. Because we don't all just collect the covers and the stamps. I have no doubt everybody here has got a spoon or a jug or a plate or something, ephemera, postcard that's tied to your collection. And I think what we tried to do is open it up to others and show that you can collect a myriad of things, but then also the postal history and the history in general is what's important. And that's how I think we brought in other folks that didn't even think about that. And then they're part, you know, and they're part of the group, and here we go. So that's my sort of overview from a couple of the topics, Steve, if that helps you and David, just to think about kind of the different ways we've approached it over the years for the classics mostly, but then for Empire State and even here in PA. Things that I started here in PA, locally in little Lancaster and then the surrounding counties has absolutely worked. I think up in New York, we're starting to get some traction. I know you are as well. And I just want to see this continue to go. So whatever you need, you just let me know. I'll do.
So just so you guys know too, you guys are talking about the historical and genealogical people. At one of our meetings, we talked about that, and I actually compiled a spreadsheet. In Pennsylvania, there are 355 historical and genealogical societies. That's not counting anything with the stamp clubs or anything else, just historical and genealogical. So I don't even know how many people that involves, but there's a lot out there. But I would like to interrupt just for a second for Vern. I know you probably know most of the people here. Vern's just now able to join us. He's also part of Pennsylvania, Florida, and every other club that you can imagine. But really glad to have you here, Vern. We talked a little bit about trying to get started with this Mid-Atlantic Association, or Federation. I guess I should use that word, right? That's where they use this. So if you just want to say a few words, that'd be awesome.
I appreciate your you're inviting me, and I think it's a great idea, and it only makes our pies bigger. So we all work together, and it's all good.
Thanks. Anybody else have any other input? Bill, did you want to say anything else?
Yeah, I'd like to add two comments. They both could come across as negative, but I don't mean them as negative statements. I mean them as statements of reality. The first one is I had lunch today with a prominent philatelist. It's the first lunch I've had outside of my house in about 6 months. Anyway, make a long story short, he told me over lunch the Zoom that he was attending this afternoon at 4 o'clock. And it struck me that I need to raise the issue, and it's tying in a little bit to what Charlie just talked about and what Steve talked about. And that is, I did not know about that Zoom. And for the life of me, I'm not sure how I would have known about that Zoom. It's not an organization I'm a member of, but the topic was fascinating to me. So we need to be aware of the fact that Zooms are, I think, here as part of our structure, not just during COVID, but possibly forever, possibly. I'm not 100% sure of that, but it seems like they're catching on in the hobby. It's a way of disseminating the information easily. I did a Zoom a month ago. I had 286 people listen to me talk. You couldn't do that in person. We don't have rooms big enough for 286 people. I don't know where I would go, Convention Hall in Philadelphia, I guess. So there's the Zoom thing. We need to be alert to the fact that this federation could be that hub of Zoom information for thousands of people. And I'm not exaggerating when I say thousands, because I think there is thousands of people that, they had, I spoke at the summer seminar one afternoon, I did 3 sessions, and I had 185 people or more. They're amazing numbers when you think about it from a hobby viewpoint. So it's
very jealous, Bill. I spoke at the summit session and I did not have 185 people.
Yeah.
So I need, I got to elevate my game. I got to change the titles to be more catchy.
You do.
Really?
You got to market better. So
Yeah, in astrophilately, I had this many people.
it's astrophilately. So it's like maxi cars. You're not going to do great with those.
No, Bill, we don't all have the 6 1/4, Bill. If we all had 6 1/4 rates, I love you, man. We would be.
That's right.
Well, make a long story short, part 2 that I want to say, and this is negative, but I'm advising us to stay away from this. One of the pitfalls of this kind of an organization is I don't want us, this is just an opinion, that and $4 you can get a coffee at Starbucks. I don't want us to get hung up on the youth aspect of it. It's useless. Let me give you an analogy. The APS, God bless their souls, did the thing with Alex Heyman with the youth thing. And well, I did the math recently. You know what they've spent per youth? It's $25,000 each per youth to get. That's the number of youth they've attracted and the money they spent. You do the simple math, they've dropped $25,000 in donations. Many of the donors to that youth thing have figured it out and they're backing off of that program. When you spend that much, that's called cost of acquisition of your asset. It's a bad investment. I also can tell you the youth in America are not going to join our postal history societies till they're at least 45 years of age. Trust me, not going to happen. How many 18-year-olds? Now, we had a 13-year-old the other day at the Collectors Club in New York, and that was nice. So you got one kid out of 20 million kids. Okay, great. Let's not waste a lot of time on this youth thing. It's a waste of time for postal history and or stamp clips. We need to devote our attention to spendable income. This is a spendable income hobby. Therefore, I don't know too many 17-year-olds, except maybe relatives of Vern, that have spendable income. The reality is, I got a 14-year-old grandson. He actually might be a stamp collector someday. But trust me, he doesn't have any spendable income at 14. So let's not pretend he does. This hobby depends upon spendable income. That spendable income for most people occurs after the age of 40. That's the truth. Let's not deal with it any, maybe it's over 50, might even be over 60. We can argue the age, but it ain't 14 and it's not 18. That youth thing is a scam, and the Alex Heyman thing is a joke.
Well, Bill, I'm gonna push back just a little bit. I'm not advocating that we go after youth. I agree with you.
I just don't want us to focus on it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I will say that I'm doing a introduction to exhibiting with APS, and we had our first meeting this last Monday. Second one is this coming Monday, and then one more. And I've got 20 people in the class, and one of them is the executive director of the ATA. And so she's going to do an exhibit on sheep. And what excites me is not so much that she's going to do an exhibit on sheep, but the idea that there are people who go to stamp shows and buy topical stamps who
Sure.
might, because of her experience, exhibit.
Yeah,
So,
but I'll also point out to you, she's 70 years old.
well, yeah.
I know
Yeah.
her very well.
Yeah.
Let's
No,
not pretend she's 18.
No. My point is
She's 70.
that topical collecting is a way for to excite young people who don't have money. And
David,
Yeah.
I'm a member of the ATA.
Okay.
I mean, I support topical collecting.
Sure.
I love Dawn Heyman. She's
Sure.
a great president of the ATA. And
Yeah.
that's one of the few organizations, by the way, that's increasing membership
Yeah.
dramatically. So we need to learn a few lessons from her as to what she's doing.
Yeah.
And we're trying to do that. You know, I've had a number of meetings with Bill DeWitt of that organization, who understands they're acquiring membership better than almost anybody else.
Yeah.
So we need to be alert to what they're doing.
Yeah.
I'm not diminishing topical collecting. I'm saying let's not spend I'm recommending we don't spend a lot of time on kiddies. This is not kindergarten. This is not a hobby for first graders.
Right.
Let's not pretend it is.
Yeah.
Look at the age in this room tonight. It's above 65. Trust me. That's the average age. And I'm causing a lot of that to get up to that number. So the reality is, I just wanted to point out, let's not waste a lot of time on youth. That's a
Yep.
That's a rabbit hole. It's a waste of time. So I want us to but I do want to recognize what Charlie said. Let's acquire people that want to become members for lots of different reasons, including the ATA, including other collecting interests, no doubt about it. I think we have a lot of opportunities as we go forward to acquire greater membership. I just think it's sad that a lot of our organizations are declining in membership. And that was the reason for me saying, what can we do differently and what can we learn from each other? And should we merge? I mean, I'm not opposed to merging. I orchestrated a lot of business mergers in my life. Most of them worked out okay. Not everyone, but most of them did okay. So I'm thinking that maybe trying to stand alone, 7 or 8 or 9, 10, because you got Vermont, you got Massachusetts, you got Maryland, you got Delaware, and they're not here tonight, but I wouldn't exclude them either, Connecticut, etc. So, I mean, I think there's an opportunity for us to grow and help each other grow. And I think Charlie, his growth with the Lancaster area has been phenomenal. I mean, he doubled the size of a stamp club from 65 to 130. I mean, that's remarkable. I mean, we all should be copying what Charlie's doing. I mean, it's not rocket science. And he'll tell you it's not rocket science. But I started an organization in Westchester 2 years ago, and if it wasn't for COVID, we'd be booming. But the reality is I went from 0 members on one day, and how many members do we now have, Charlie? 30.
Oh, we're almost 40 some odd members, right?
Yeah,
This was
in a
phenomenal.
brief period of time.
Yep.
Now we went from 0 18 months ago to 40 members. So things can happen if you put the time and effort in it. And because the people out there want to join, I caution you, they're not 17. You know, every member that joined the organization in Chester County is over 40. I don't think there was anybody under 40. Is that a fair statement, Charlie?
No, that's a fair statement. I would agree. 40, 45 seems to be the sweet spot. And there's a lot of folks in those decades, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, that are absolutely looking for this sort of synergy and, you know, a continual learning mode and something new and all that cross-pollination and camaraderie as well. I mean, it
Yeah,
just,
they love the learning part.
yeah, the learning is, I mean, that's, you know, and, you know, it doesn't hurt when Timmy O'Connor comes in dressed up as Ben Franklin and, you know, wants to take us down the whole 17-7. I mean, you know, that room was full and there was some youth in that room. But at the end of the day, though, those are people that had an appreciation for the storytelling, right? He took us on a journey.
Ben Franklin. Yeah.
It was a good
So they're my two comments. You know,
That's good,
let's
though.
learn from each other and let's not waste a lot of time on youth. And don't go running around the country saying Schultz is opposed to youth.
Well, you know, it's on the record, Bill. It's on the record, so we got it. Don't you worry about it.
I just don't want us to waste a lot of time and money. That's a fool's gold activity in the hobby.
If you do things right in the other decades we're talking, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and, you know, you will invariably bring in other younger individuals that come along for the ride, and you would have some stickiness there, but it shouldn't be the primary focus, I think.
The average age of an APS member right now is 69. That tells you about all you need to know.
Yeah. Okay, Bob, do you have anything you'd like to bring in?
Well, I mean, the interesting principle that comes out of the discussion for me is really the focus on Federation of Postal History Societies, or really a federation of clubs. And I think there's merit really in both directions.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't think, an either or an or situation. I mean, here in New Jersey, I can tell you when I first got involved with Nojex in the late 1980s, that show was sponsored by the North Jersey Federated Stamp Clubs, which was essentially Trenton to the north. And there were then close to 30 active clubs in New Jersey. We're down to a half a dozen. So there's been significant attrition.
Yeah.
And most of those clubs, I think, with the exception of two that I'm aware of, don't have a significant website kind of a presence. And they're struggling. And I think that's true of a lot of the local clubs. We have several, half a dozen strong ones that are the ones that remain. The others are all gone now, and that's a sad story.
It is.
So we need to do a lot of things, but we need to strengthen what we have and build upon what we have. And certainly the local clubs need a lot of attention, and particularly in the technology area. You know, Charlie, I mean, you've done an incredible job because you have the capacity and the capability to do that. Many of the society or the local clubs do not. And most of them that I'm aware of don't have the clubs don't have websites. And I think frequently the only way people know that they're even around is going on to the APS website. I believe the APS website has a listing of the societies that have signed on to that website, but even there, a lot of the local clubs are not listed. So there's a lot of need to get these clubs out into the public domain so that people become aware of them. And that's certainly something that an organization such as we're talking about today has the capacity to do. And that would be very important. We're really talking about philately at its grassroots. And I think that's an area that needs a lot of attention today.
Bob, if I can ask you two questions, if I can.
Sure.
One is you probably produce, I think, the finest postal history journal of any society in the country. I mean, I think, the race is over. You've won. Uh, my question is, how do you do that? A, and B, does the New Jersey Postal History Society have a sugar daddy?
Well, we have a cadre of writers, about a half a dozen of us that try to contribute to the journal, and then pick up a couple of others along the way. And we've been successful in doing that. Of course, we're all aging, and that's a concern. The society will be celebrating its 50th anniversary in 2 years, and none of us are getting any younger. So that's always a matter of concern. In terms of financial support, we really lose money. We only charge $15 a year, and we've not raised the dues in 20 years. We get by because a lot of 25% of the membership now takes it electronically, so we save in printing and postage. And each year, in our November issue, which is the 4th issue of the year, we ask for donations. And I will say that the membership has been extremely generous to us in supporting the society, and that's really helped sustain us, so that we're in a reasonably decent financial position. And the contributors to the journal, although again we don't really get apart from the cadre of about a half a dozen folks, it's difficult to get new people to write. Every once in a while, an article comes along, and without embarrassing Vern Morris, who's on the line, a couple of years back, Vern purchased a cover. It was nothing to look at. It was a very early cover with a rate marking, folded letter sheet dated 1722 from Shrewsbury, New Jersey, to an address in New York. Well, it turns out this is the earliest piece of New Jersey postal history with the rate marking on it. It didn't have a town hand stamp or a marking on it at that time. But it clearly, as Vern researched it in depth, it went from Shrewsbury north along the coast to Perth Amboy, and then into New York. And he wrote a fascinating article on it, did a lot of research in a lot of places. And thank Vern for his contribution. And every once in a while, he'll get an article from a very serious philatelist interested in postal history that really adds something to the literature, and that was a wonderful contribution that Vern made. So we're always looking for it. One of the things I do fairly frequently, I will tell the membership in the journal, all you really need to do is send a scan of your favorite cover with a couple of lines about it. We'll work with you and turn it into a short article. And despite my entreaties to do that, the responses are few and far between. But as I said, we're fortunate that we have a number of writers, members of the society that are contributors, and that really has sustained us.
Well, I can add to that too, Bob, because I think the Excelsior is an example as well, where I think that maybe for a bunch of years kind of went by the wayside, right? And I know that I found myself having a little bit of time and started writing a few little pieces here or there. We do the same. We reach out. We said, send us your cover and 3 sentences. I could write 8 pages, man, on that thing. If here we go. I mean, but we don't need 8. I need 1 page, right? Cover, 1 page, maybe the back, done. I could tell a whole yarn about that. We recently just brought in a new editor-in-chief after, David Williams did it for 14 years. I was fortunate to get Jeff Stage to come on board, and he just put out his first issue, right, a couple months ago, which was, I think, and then we refreshened it up. We went, we did a little, we were color already, but we made a little bit more. We wanted to keep the price where we could, in order to raise dues. Same thing as you, Bob. We're keeping them where they're at. We haven't done that in a long time. There were a couple of years the Empire State didn't even charge dues for 2 years because they couldn't even put a journal out, nor the bulletin. So I remember that's when I got a little bit more involved, and we created the website. We started promoting it. We got back to Bulletin. We got back to the Excelsior. We just went through, the color piece. I negotiated that rate to make sure we could print it at a good rate twice a year. We were doing 4, we're down to 2. I'd rather put out 2 really solid issues of a postal history journal than 4 crappy ones. Let's put it that way, right? So this way it'll be more robust, maybe a little thicker, something you can get your hands on. And we also just had our first 2 authors. So it was the same thing you, Bob, right? I write, a few others write. And I said, you got to be a little flexible and open on what you would expect and accept.
Yeah.
I don't need a treatise, right? And so, one of our newest members to the society in PA joined the society in New York. He found a nice little cover with the little locomotive on it from the pictorial series. And it had something up on New York. Next thing you know, you had a 2.5-page article done. He's happy, new author, he's engaged. He wrote a really cool story. And now others will want to kind of do the same. So we're trying to facilitate that. And now with some new folks at the helm too, and a fresh new look to our publication. Here you go. I think so that helps as well. Like you're saying, Bob, too. There is no sugar daddy up in New York State, that's for sure. But there's a fair amount of money in the coffers. They've kind of held it fairly stable over the years, without raising it and being, I think, a little bit conscious of how we're doing stuff. And so I just want to echo and back up what you're doing. You're putting out a phenomenal journal and you're putting out 4 and each one is stellar. I'm happy to put out the 2 right now and maybe we'll grow that to 4. But if you could put out a high quality and show folks you're out there and that you're relevant and you could help them along to submit and write and do a little bit of research, they're interested. There's a tie, right? That's why they found it anyway. I think we have an opportunity to do that and elevate. And then if we're sharing all of those at some level, even all the better. It's amazing how all these states have an amazing history going back to the earliest days, right? So you can't talk about New Jersey without New York and PA and VA and what, all of our states are connected historically. And so the history that we study is connected and the routes and rails and roads and rivers all connected at all. So there's a lot of cross-pollination. And maybe somebody submits something to Bob that'll go, hey, that's a nice little piece, but maybe you should publish that in the Empire State because it's more New York related done. And I can push somebody to you or to Virginia or to Delaware. Or so that's what the Federation would also bring is website, landing pad, relevance, all of us, everybody rises. And then all of the journals and meetings that we have together. That's a pretty powerful federation to kind of put that out there. So that's got some oomph in my mind. So.
A question I have is, have we as a group were considering expanding from postal history societies to also include stamp clubs? Did I hear some consensus around that, or am I misinformed as to what I heard tonight? Does anybody want to comment? I know Dave wants us to include both.
Well, I guess our experience in the Northeast is simply, we're just trying to be a connecting point between people that collect stamps and societies. So to me, there was no downside in inviting any stamp club to be a member of the Federation. If you have a specific reason for it to be just postal history societies, then that's fine. And certainly if you plan to do something different from what we've done, that's fine. I was just suggesting that if your thought was, well, we'll start with postal history societies and then we'll, invite all stamp clubs, then my suggestion is just go big. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Gene, what do you think about that? We haven't heard too much from you. How are things down in Virginia? A lot of active clubs, or you guys staying active there?
Well, I actually live in North Carolina.
Okay.
We do have a local stamp club here in the Raleigh area. I haven't attended it yet. In Virginia, there was one in Richmond, but I'm not sure it's still going.
Well, Russell Crowe's moving there this week, right? So
yes, Russell's supposed to be moving there. He's supposed to be moving there. And like Wayne said, we're having a meeting at my house this weekend. So I'm going to take this information that I'm getting from here and presenting it to the board of directors there and see if we can come up with some ideas also.
Okay. That all sounds great. So, Vern, do you have anything else to add in with what we're talking about?
Well, I think having a World Series show to anchor with is a big help. And I like to hear other opinions about that.
Well, so you guys know better than I do. I know we had mentioned like NoJex. What are the other big shows that would be worth affiliating with the World Series? Is NoJex the only one in that Mid Atlantic area, or
Oh, Napex in Washington
Apex also?
and Boston, Boxborough.
Right. Well, that's basically up with the Northeast guys.
Those are the three active shows. There were at one point we had a show outside of Philadelphia, which was a wonderful show for many years.
Right.
Used to be in downtown Philadelphia when I was a kid collector and started going to it. And then there was a show in Virginia, which was Vapex. And Vapex died a number of years ago. So we're down to three in the region now: NoJex, Napex, and Boxborough. It's certainly, as I said earlier, it's a forum. We did for several years have a competitive postal history component to the show, made up of a number of the postal history societies, and it was fun while it lasted, and then it kind of just died its own death. I think the last one I attended was up in Boxborough, actually, probably about 10 years ago. I'm thinking I sat with Nancy Clark and her husband up there at the show. And I think that may have been one of the last that was held.
So is it important to, David, maybe you could answer this, is it important to affiliate with one show or maybe do different ones each year? And does it have to be a World Series show? I know I'm throwing a lot at one time. I'm in David's class, this exhibiting class, right? So I never exhibited before. So I can't compete in a World Series, that's not even in my world, right? So I'm looking for things where it gives me a reason to exhibit also. And that might be some online award or online competition, or like we talked about, postal history society competition, or something where somebody new that we're hoping to get to exhibit could compete without having world-class stuff. But we also want to offer that too, because
Steve, you're going to be in a WSP show. No, there's no reason not to be. You've been a collector for a while, and you have a passion, and you've got a story to tell, and we're gonna take the material that you've got, and we're gonna make it into something that's a good story. So yeah, don't worry about that. Don't be intimidated by the idea of a WSP.
I'm just trying to reach the full range, though. That's all, because those 20 people, that it'd be kind of neat, right? That you have a place to compete against other people at your stage of exhibiting.
There are a number of local shows in Pennsylvania that I'm aware of that have been held over the years, as probably most of the states that are part of this discussion. So in terms of getting your feet wet as an exhibitor, I think you have the opportunity, at least initially, to participate in a local show, get the exhibit together, and see what you can do with it in terms of developing it. And then once you feel really comfortable at it, then take it up to the next level. But there's certainly that opportunity. And I know there's any number of local clubs that were running shows. Of course, everything now with the COVID has come to a halt. But I'm sure once we have a vaccine in place, God willing, we'll get back to a more normal life, whatever that might mean. And we'll start to see shows again. I think we all miss them. I certainly miss them.
Would NoJex be a logical place to maybe think about it? I mean, you probably know more about it than anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think every World Series shows, my experience goes, as I say, goes back to the late 1980s. We always have had first-time exhibitors. Every show, there's at least 2 or 3 or 4 first-time exhibitors, and they get a lot of attention. The judges are really good with them. Right. And they're looking for input and comment. And there's a lot of literature out now that wasn't, existent 30, 35 years ago. The American Association of Philatelic Exhibitors, AAPE, have a great journal, a lot of how-to kinds of things, from soup to nuts, what it should look like, and the different aspects of exhibiting that go into the point system and so on. It can be kind of daunting, doing it for the first time, but it's like anything else. It takes time and effort and energy to do it, but I will tell you, you get no greater satisfaction of actually going to those frames and mounting your exhibit and putting it in the frames and looking at it and feeling good about it, because I tell folks, you really don't know what you have until you write it up for an exhibit. And every time you sit down with that material and you're working with it and you're studying with it, you learn aspects of it that you thought you knew, but you really didn't.
The rabbit
The other
hole.
thing I just want to add, because we're talking about exhibiting, but the other side of that is the literature competitions as well, right? So if there's postal history societies and we're pushing out journals with some a myriad of articles, and I've only started authoring. I've moved away from authoring medical papers and medical journals and writing philatelic and postal history. This has been a great filler of a gap. I'd rather do this than write those other things I was writing all those years ago. Is that we try to marry, right? Vern knows, you know what I'm talking about. Jeez, that whole process. Oh yeah. But I had a couple of covers of Nature and Cell, so I'm proud about that. But I think that we have to include that as well for those that don't exhibit per se and can do a frame or multi, but they write, right? And we've got postal history journals, and so how do you do the competition to do that? And is that also another piece of this, which is also where people have the opportunity to do that and judge? I know I just started doing that. I would have never thought to submit anything, which I think I did last year at Sescal or something, and it ended up winning. Go figure! It ended up winning the grand award. My little article that appeared in the Chronicle. I mean, who would have thought? I think they were all drinking. Maybe Bill, you were judging that, and you kind of said, "What the hell? Give the guy the."
I'd have given you a silver.
I know you. So yeah, I feel it. So I think for that, going in unassuming, just happy to even be, just to share what you write. So it's the same thing about sharing your collection and putting it in the frames. The same thing for somebody that takes the effort to research it and write it up and show the article, is you want to give recognition on both those sides. And as a federation, if we have the show or anything else and we could do something like that, I think that's a great bookend on both ends to recognize the writers in the room, the exhibitors in the room, because it all ties back to the cover you were studying and a folded letter sheet or whatever it was, right? So it's just trying to fold those two together as we move it forward, just to keep that on the agenda. Okay.
One other thing I was thinking about too was this is one of the things I brought up with the Pennsylvania Society is study groups. And if you had a federation of more than one, one postal history society might have 2 or 3 people interested in something. But if you had 2 or 3 from 5 or 6 different, now you have 10 or 12 in a group. There's more synergy there for learning about different things that someone might be interested in, whatever that may be, whether it's exhibiting or it could be myriad of things, or 3 centers. We could do all kinds of things. But yeah,
I've been with that 3 cent study group since I was barely walking, right? So
right.
Fortunate to get sucked into that. But those study groups can take on a life of their own, and the federation, which brings all these groups together for postal history, would absolutely probably be able to carve out.
Right.
I like ship letters. And we got some coastal cities here where ship letters are coming in and out. I have no doubt in all these states, you'd have folks that would want to see an old ship letter coming out of New York like me, or maybe Philly, or maybe on the Jersey. I mean, pick it, right? So Richmond. So they're absolutely for study groups would be synergy where in a postal history space, you can bring folks together to study the same sort of interest. Sure.
So does anybody else have anything to add? Maybe Dave or Wayne, anything else to add in for? Okay. Other than that, I just guess we need to kind of figure like what our next step might be, how we
Can I add one more thing, Steve? Because I want to add another angle for all of us to think about in your community, and it doesn't have to be necessary for this group of the Federation. I'm fortunate to be the president of the board of the North Museum of Nature and Science here in Lancaster County. I was involved with the Smithsonian, like a number of you, right? The National Postal Museum, and sat in the council for 8 or 9 years of philatels. God bless that whole experience. Bob, I know you were, man, that was a phenomenal, talk about being in a room and getting to go in the vault and the library and just those 9 years with, Alan Kane and Wilson Hume and go down the list, right? I mean, we just sitting in the room with Bob and everybody else was phenomenal. But for me, there was that appreciation of the museum side of it. And then when I came to Lancaster and found out there was a nationally accredited museum of nature and science, and I got involved through my daughter and my wife, and then eventually, then you're the president of the board. Interesting, I'm the president of both these organizations, and there's a lot of synergy between Stamp Club in Lancaster and Postal History and Stamps, and of course the museum and the objects and items that we show and the history that's involved there. And you talked earlier about topicals and collecting things and what's on stamps and youth and even intermediate collectors. In that I have a dinosaur, real bones over there, and you know they're on stamps. And I got flowers and birds and butterflies over here, and they are on stamps. And so what I did 2 years ago with my CEO at the museum and one of my educators was created, and it's not new, we created a passport to discovery. Simple, easy, little booklet, couple of pages. I had about 1 billion stamps donated by our local club because everybody's got plenty of them in shoe boxes. And they organized them, they sorted them. We created activity stations on the floor at the museum. We created a passport to discovery. It was about 20 some odd pages, a nice little book, stapled, kind of glossy, images and themes every month. And you would come in, you'd get that book. It was the giveaway, parents, grandparents, the kids. It brought them all together. You dig through a bucket of stamps to find whatever. Keep them, baggies, done. We had a map on the wall, genealogy. Where are you from? What country? Figure it out. Maybe you'll find the stamp in there. We threw some covers in. We went and leaned in on this program. I sponsored it. I underwrote it for the year. Couldn't get enough of them out there. Ran out of the books. It would give them a reason to come back the next month because there was a new theme. They knew they could spend the 30, 40 minutes, an hour on the floor at the activity stations, rummaging through stamps. Who hasn't been to the National Postal Museum up in the Gross Gallery and rummaged through that bucket of stamps they stick in the middle of the floor? Simple and easy, but man, that was a tractor. I've also got members that have now joined the Philatelic Society because they met us through the museum. Completely a different approach, but it was this synergy in the history and the history. And now we're revamping it for a version 3.0, and we're going to continue to expand it because they're asking for it. And in the pandemic, I got stamps and bags and I'm mailing them to people with the book. And they're getting Legos, they're getting stamps in the book, they're getting other treats and things they could build. And what they want more of, they want the book and the stamps and the covers. So go figure that, I had no idea. That's in these 7, 8 counties in this part of the world that we're touching and Northern Maryland. So I'm just throwing that little seed out there. Is it doesn't take a lot of effort, but if you can find a way with your local organizations and your entity to find another entity and join forces, I'm just saying that's why I think this federation is a great idea, because I found a little old nonprofit up the block that was kind of looking to how do they grow. We were going, how do we grow? Simply by coming together and doing this complementary approach, we found a simple program that just has grown in the past 2.5, 3 years. So I throw that out as a teaser to think about what these sort of collaborations and partnerships can do. So I'm glad you invited me, and I'm happy to help in any way possible. So I'll stop there, Steve. I just want to add that little North Museum. If anybody wants to see what it looks like, I can point you to the website. It's on the Lancaster thing. You go there. It says Passport to Discovery. You can go to the North Museum. It's a simple, easy to do. And it was, again, I think, a way to engage, to see a young person with their grandfather at the museum sitting in 2 little kids' chairs, because we didn't have an adult chair for the grandfather. We had 2 kids' chairs at that table talking together about not the stamp. This went beyond the stamps and the covers, right? That was very rewarding. And I think that's what we're looking for here, is to try to get that spark back across the board. So we can do it in all our states by coming together. I just want to throw that out there as an opportunity. So thanks, Steve.
Thanks. So the one thing that we don't have anybody that I could find from Maryland. DC is already affiliated with the Southeastern Federation. I don't know if that's not, if that was just because there was no Mid-Atlantic thing. I don't know if, and you guys know way more people than I do. You might think of somebody that might be a logical person in a certain state. That would be awesome. And I can, build like an email list and we can talk on things. I don't know if we need like an organizing committee, something like this. If everybody seems like it's worth moving forward on, maybe we could have maybe a smaller group, 3 or 4 people, something, I don't know, with an organizing group to brainstorm some things and get things out to everybody. And making it a little bit more formal. If that
Well,
seems logical.
Yeah, I think you make a couple good points, Steve. Why don't you send out an email to all of us and ask for volunteers for the organizing committee?
Okay,
Let us think about that overnight and we'll get back to you.
that'd be great.
And maybe, just maybe that, there's some great ideas being floated here tonight that can truly help us do better with our organizations. And to me, that's the key, because we got to do better than what we're currently doing. That's sort of my attitude.
Sure.
And I know Dave is trying to do that in Ohio, and Wayne is hanging in there with West Virginia. And, it's in Gene with Virginia, and Bob's doing a great job in New Jersey, but his membership is sliding. The Pennsylvania Postal History Society, and I'm not telling tales out of school, I mean, we're almost broke. I mean, we're close to bankruptcy. So we have no choice but to change what we're doing, because what we're doing isn't working that well. So, it's either do things differently or go out of business. And I don't really want to be W.T. Grants of postal history.
Yeah. Okay, well, that sounds good. How about I'll do that? I'll recap everything and just, and I'll send you guys an email on this, but since I do the website, I'll do the paphs.org. I'll just put this recording, I'll just call it Mafed, M-A-F-E-D, so, backslash M-A-F-E-D. If you want to come back and look at this, or if you have somebody that might be interested, they could come and look at it and see what we talked about. You don't have to explain everything to everybody. And that is something that I've been doing too. I've helped Vern with a little bit of a presentation, and Gus Spector, guys are doing it. If you have any people out there that are interested in presentations, the Zoom part of it, I'm more than happy to help them put that together. And also, even if it's not for Zoom, I can take PowerPoints and some audio and put it all together, make a video out of it. I'm more than happy to help people with that kind of stuff. I have all the software, and you'll see on the front page of our website, Gus just did one. Very good, about 15, 20 minutes, and it was awesome. He did his part, I did my part, and we knocked out a really nice thing. So I'm certainly offering that to everybody that's interested, or if you know somebody that might be. Don't let technology, that's the kind of thing I don't want people to get the technology to get in the way, right? We talked about. So I volunteer to help with anybody with that kind of stuff. So I will send an email out with a little bit of a recap of some of the things we've talked about. The main reason I record this is I can go back and look. I don't have to be a secretary writing everything down right now. I'll capture some salient points and put it out to you guys. Maybe think about it a little bit more. That'd be awesome. And we'll maybe meet again in I don't know, a couple weeks maybe. I don't want to get too I don't want to go a month and we were on to other things, maybe about 2 weeks or something, if that works for you guys. It's a little bit before the holiday, after Thanksgiving, a little before Christmas, and maybe
Sure.
moving into the beginning of the year.
Good.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
sure. Let's do that. That'd be great.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Well, thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it. This is hopefully it can be a really neat thing for everybody. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Well, great seeing you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Good job, Steve.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
Be well, everybody. Be well.
Care.